Agentic engineering, where AI meets infrastructure.
Okay, so hello everyone. We are facing some technical issues, so yeah, today it will be a little bit shorter session than it was supposed to be. And yeah, let's jump straight to the topic. The main topic for today is about internal developer platforms and reference architectures. What you can see on the screen right now is the most common or the most typical architecture of what companies, what organizations do today in terms of IDP implementation. So what you usually have is a kind of backend layer. In this particular case, it's Crossplane, but in case of Azure, it could be also ISO, Azure Service Operator. In case of Google, it could be KCC, Kubernetes Config Connector. And of course, in case of Amazon, that would be ACK, Amazon Controllers for Kubernetes. So the backend layer is about the REST APIs, consumable REST APIs that can be exposed, consumed by the front-end layer. The most popular solution on the market today is Backstage, the project from Spotify. It's not the only one open source portal today. There is at least one or two other alternatives on the market today. I'm not sure if you are familiar with OpenMFP. Alessandro, did you look at this? Not? So OpenMFP is a portal created by SAP along with the European Union, and a few other companies, European companies, which is supposed to compete with Backstage and has a slightly different approach to the architecture. But yeah, what you need in general is the backend and the front-end layer, right? This is where most of the market goes today. This is more or less how it looks in most of the enterprises. So my question to you guys is, what do you think about this picture? Is it, because I'm going to challenge this picture after we confirm that this is more or less kind of in the industry standard today. I would like to challenge this architecture and propose a little bit different way of building platforms. What's your opinion on that? Do you see a similar picture in your customers and companies you work with, or does it look different? What's your view on this?
I'd say it's a common picture to see. It's not always the case, but I do think Backstage is often the default, and then it's not always Crossplane. But I see Backstage more than Crossplane. I mean, Backstage also plugged into other providers, but I think that's a common one. Alessandro?
Yeah.
I think with AI, Backstage is becoming less important, right? So it's not the first thing a developer opens up. AI is making Backstage a bit obsolete, I think, or not central to the workflow of a developer.
Yeah,
that's to me.
That's actually a very good point, because we totally forgot about that. So the way I'm seeing platforms is for 7 or 8 or even 9 different interfaces. The most obvious one is the portal, of course, Web UI. Next to that, we have usually REST APIs. This is also how Azure Cloud, GCP, AWS Console are built, right? So the two interfaces we consume the most is the REST APIs and the Web UI. Next to that, we can use GitOps, which is kind of just different way of consuming APIs. So we have three. The one mentioned by Alessandro, which is about MCP support, which is growing like crazy. I think in Microsoft they already covered everything, right? The whole cloud. In Amazon, it's like 60 resources already. I'm not sure about GCP, but MCP protocol is one of the options for how you can connect and how you can actually consume the resources. Yeah, so these are at least 4 interfaces, and there is much more than this. I have a list somewhere. Do I have a picture with this? Not sure. Yeah. So yeah, fully agree with you. I'm pretty sure inside Backstage there will be some sort of chats available sooner or later, or maybe it's already available there. But that's definitely the way to go. Okay. So Wojtek, can you switch to the slide actually? To the slide number 34, let's say. Not this one. It's not 34. Yeah.
1 second. Okay, yeah. I have difficult in full screen. Okay.
Maybe I will share with you another link which is more correct to that. So that was the typical industry way of building platforms today, but what I like a little bit more than this is the architecture proposed, and actually it's very similar. If you look, I'm not sure if you are familiar with the Kano. Wojtek, I will share the link with you to the Kano. Maybe you can switch to the Kano page for a second. Yeah. So what we've seen in the previous picture is almost one-to-one copy of the Kano reference architecture. Alessandro, did you see it? In practice, do you know any customers, companies using it, or is it just? You're on mute. I can't hear Alessandro.
It may be a mic issue because you don't look like you're muted based on the icon, but we can't hear you.
It's a day of technical issues, but yeah, first go in the new year. So, okay, never mind. But if you look into Kano, how Kano is built, it's basically almost the same architecture. So they use Backstage, they use Kubernetes operators. In this particular case, they focus mainly on crossplane. Next to that, there is some Argo, Kicklock, a couple of other components, but that's more or less the way of building platforms by Cisco and Amazon reference architecture, right? This is a project which is driven by the people from Cisco and AWS. Again, one-to-one copy to what we've seen before. But what I would like to discuss with you guys is something different. And this is the last link I think we'll be looking at today. Wojtek, can you share the latest link? And I am really impressed you have a Windows machine. Yeah, this one. So maybe you can zoom it a little bit.
Okay.
So, in case of SAP and European Union, strategic initiatives of building sovereign cloud and sovereign infrastructure across Europe. This is the reference architecture they propose. The first difference is that it's not only about the middleware or application layer, it's also about the bare metal layer. It's also about data. And the component and the new component on the top of the list, which is platform mesh, a completely new approach to API management or API marketplace, because there are many different ways how people call actually platform mesh. I was seeing people, using API Hub or API Marketplace, API Mesh. So the name is not clear in case of SAP. It's usually Platform Mesh. So the architecture they propose is slightly different. It covers a bigger scope of what platform is. So it's not only a couple of tools you deploy to the cloud. And what is also important here is that you can build your own cloud. With use of these components, you can build your own cloud and compete with GCP, AWS, Azure, if you want, right? So that's the scope of this so-called platform. It's built on top of the Lego blocks architecture, so you can cherry pick the components and the systems you want to use. You don't need to take everything. You can select and cherry pick the parts that make the most sense for you for your particular case. So if you want to build internal developer platform, is fine. Then you can use maybe 20 or 30% of the components available in the stack. You don't need to use everything. But if you want to build your own cloud, it is also possible. So the scope of this platform, the scope of this architecture is much wider than Canoe and to what we've seen before, right? Crossplane and Backstage is a very limited use case. It's mostly about helping SRE development teams with infrastructure provisioning and deployment of their applications. In this case, we cover basically everything, end-to-end cloud deployment. And of course, some of you might think of, it's a crazy idea, it's impossible, these guys are insane, right? But in fact, the very first implementation of this stack is already in place in Frankfurt. SAP announced about a month or 2 months ago a new cloud, SAP cloud, with the very first region being based in Frankfurt, which is based on exactly same stack as you can see here, right? So they are next to the building of the platform tooling. They also try to eat their own dog food, right? So they also using the same technologies, the same stack in their own production systems. Wojtek, can you go a little bit down? Maybe there's something more to discuss here. Yeah, maybe a little bit down. There should be another picture. This one. Yeah, maybe you can zoom it a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. So today, when you deploy any of SAP services in Europe, you have a choice. You can deploy to Azure, you can deploy to Google, you can deploy to GCP, and you can also deploy to SAP Cloud, which is built on top of this particular architecture, right? Another implementation which is using a lot of these components is so-called AI European Union Cloud, which was built along with NVIDIA. And the newest NVIDIA Kubernetes operators. I'm not sure about how many components are in use there, but this project, as far as I remember, was developed by Deutsche Telekom, or led by Deutsche Telekom. You can find a lot of sources in the internet. So that's like a second big enterprise scale cloud being deployed with use of a lot of the architecture components and systems which you can see on the screen right now, right? So we have at least 2 implementations in Europe of the stack, which have insanely big scale, much wider and much bigger than just an internal developer platform. So yeah, and that's where I wanted to start actually, and I hope we can have some sort of discussion, because first of all, the scope of the platform itself is much bigger. So if you have some specific use cases, or you have really complicated infrastructure with Apeiro, you can basically cover everything. There are no any gaps in this particular architecture. There's everything that is needed to build even your own cloud. In case of the typical IDP implementation, it's very simple. It's just components, backstage, crossplane, maybe a little bit of AI, but it's very small when comparing to this picture, right? So, what are your thoughts about this, Alessandro? Maybe because this is kind of competing project to Microsoft in some way, right? I as far as I know, you're also deploying some sort of kind of local sovereign regional clouds recently, right? Ensuring customers it's all protected by European authorities and so on. This is like a slightly different approach because this project is also about having a full control over cloud technologies from inside Europe.
No, I don't speak on behalf of Microsoft, especially on sovereign cloud, because I have my own opinion. Just as a side note, whenever I speak with people, about this topic, which are very important to me, and the news of these days make it even more relevant, right? So if US invades Greenland, then we have a problem, right? So then we really gonna have some serious discussion. What I always say is I'm a European citizen before a Microsoft employee, right? So my allegiance is with Europe, born and raised in Italy, right? So I know that it's not about me, but so I'm Italian. My first wife is Belgian. We have 2 Belgian-Italian kids, born and raised in Amsterdam. My the current wife is Greek. She has 3 Greek-Dutch kids. So we are really, the typical European family. And for me, it's very important we defend our interests and we make our interests first. Make Europe great again, or Europe first, right? So that said, I've been talking to people also at AI Dev in Amsterdam last August. This is great, right? So this is SAP, making an attempt to standardize, right? So to put things in a logical form, right? So that probably works great. SAP has amazing engineers. They've been working on Gartner for a long time. They are one of the best companies out there. They are very technical, but feels like they are a bit pushing their own agenda, right? So Gartner, their own Linux flavor. It feels like a little less collaboration, a little less from the ground up, where people sit together and they decide on a standard. Because if you ask the CERN people, I was talking to people from CERN, they also have their own reference architecture. And I think this is the problem with Europe, right? So we have many different, backgrounds, right? So everybody thinks it's a bit better than the neighbor, right? But we need one entity, one person, one leadership, not one person, but I guess a new generation of leaders in Europe, but also in our job, right? So in this industry in Europe, that can take the lead and says, I hear all of you, we hear all the opinions, but then we need to set on something that works for everybody, right? So because also the CNCF is publishing these reference architectures, CERN put his own, Adobe put it there, and that it's more collaborative, right? So it's more like this feels a bit like okay, these are what we think is a reference architecture for private cloud or run your own cloud that competes with the hyperscalers. It works. For sure, I know it works, and it's also certified for security standards. But the risk is to exclude other people. I talked to people in Italy, people in Switzerland, people in the Netherlands. They all want to run their own cloud in their own way, but that's a waste of efforts, right? So waste of resources. We need to have a real European reference architecture for clouds.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. What do you think about this new NIFOS organization? Do you have any thoughts on that
Yeah.
part? Because it's like a part of CNCF, right? Which is supposed to cover all the
Not
European
CNCF, Linux Foundation.
Linux
Sorry,
Foundation.
Linux
Linux
Foundation,
Foundation, yeah.
right? So this is supposed to be the solution to many problems you mentioned.
It could be. It needs some years to flesh their muscles, right? So and make a name. In the end, it's also about local government trusting these institutions, the new institutions, right? So local government, European Commission. I love Europe. I'm here. I remember a time when there were borders, right? So I'm that old. So there was a time when you had to, cross the border to go to Poland, to go to France. It wasn't fun. And but we need our leaders to step up. That's the thing. Our leaders in the European Commission, for sure, in Brussels, but also our leaders in the industry. And if they don't step up, I think it's also up to us to step up and take responsibility. This is a great start. Neofos as well. So we need more places where we can discuss. So KubeCon Amsterdam, AI Dev in Amsterdam, and more occasions where we can sit down and talk openly about building a new future. Because I think in Europe, we have all the tools, the people, the resources to beat the hyperscalers at their own game.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I recently have heard a very interesting comment regards to the Python creator, which is from the Netherlands, if I remember, Guido van Rosen, right? Linus Torvalds, which we know pretty well, a kernel developer from Finland, right? So in Europe we have a lot of great people, and it's not like rocket science to build clouds today, right? But the biggest problem is to what you said before, to unify most of the European efforts to a standardized framework, which could allow us to build something bigger together, right? So I think this is the biggest problem, and this is also why I'm so excited about this platform mesh component, because this is exactly the answer to this problem. So platform mesh is a kind of API layer allowing different companies across Europe offering different services in different models to exchange or to provide their services from inside a single umbrella. Which is Apeiro in this particular case, right? But thanks to platform mesh implementation, you can expose your services. I know if you're a database guru, you can expose your databases to the whole Europe through the same interface that you can consume. I know maybe networking features from Spain or Italy or whatever, right? So platform mesh is supposed to act as a kind of service bus that we know from the enterprise infrastructures, allowing us to exchange the services, the data across different countries, different cloud providers. According to what was discussed recently, I'm into 200 companies, being a part of it, being put under the single umbrella. There's already like 15 or 20 enterprises contributing to the framework. Deutsche Telekom is one of them, España, Telefonica. And there is also one company from Poland involved. So that's the goal. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's the risk of the project to be not very successful is high, because I can't remind anything like this to happen over the last 10, 15, 20 years in Europe. Like combined effort of different countries, different companies working together on the same architecture, the same product. But there is at least a chance to do that. So yeah, and
did you actually deploy this? I mean, did you ever try this? I tried Gardener back in the day, right? So and I wasn't impressed. I saw it also used in some OpenStack based cloud providers in the Netherlands. So they were offering Kubernetes as a service based on Gardener, and I didn't particularly like it.
Yeah, this is a very important topic because this is a very good example of the potential problems and conflicts we may have in the community, right? There's lots of people preferring Cluster API than Gardener, and I was using Cluster API for 5, 6, 7 years. Since the beginning of the project, I am a very big fan of it. It's implemented in kind of Kubernetes way of thinking, and yeah, for me, the very first choice is Cluster API. But what is important about this particular architecture is you can replace any component with something else. If you don't like Gardener, you can use Cluster API, and there's no. It's not an issue. And what is even more, in Gardener, they recently implemented a plugin and integration with Cluster API, so you can provision, so you can integrate both Gardener and Cluster API, working together if you need for some reason, right? So the idea behind this architecture is so you can replace any component with something else if you don't like it.
And the main issue is also the fact that probably those implementations were incomplete or not compliant with this kind of architecture, really. So you got some parts of it and not full experience, let's say, which is another thing, because there is not much, actually, you don't have fully, unless you work in SAP or some other like companies that actually implemented this, but generally there is nothing like that in the wild. Like you cannot really go in and just use some provider with this kind of architecture yet. Hopefully it will change soon.
Yeah, so for example, Alessandro asked me if I used this architecture already. I think I used for 40% of it, big part, almost half of the components in there, and also some alternatives, right?
Yeah.
So if they recommend Argo CD, I prefer to use Flux, for example, right? Especially that there was the new Flux UI announced about a week ago. So we have also an UI interface in Flux today, which was the biggest advantage for Argo CD in the past, right? So it's again, you may want to use both. You may choose between Argo and Flux. It's up to you to decide. What is most important is that it's all Kubernetes centric. I think there are no doubts here. API first principle is the biggest one. So we don't use any tools that don't expose any kind of REST APIs, and everything is Kubernetes oriented, Kubernetes centric, right? So we keep the state inside etcd database and so on. We use Kubernetes resources, KRM, Kubernetes resources model, CRDs, CRs, stuff like that as the defaults. Apart from that, it's all more like they often say it's more like USB-C. They want to build a kind of USB-C, allowing you to replace whatever tool, whatever device you want to connect to in the most convenient way. Platform mesh is the hardest one. That's also why I'm spending a lot of time recently. It's really hard to deploy. It's like very complicated API machinery. Not easy to handle. Deploying a POC or simple demo environment takes weeks, if not months, for enterprises. So it's really hard. But what is going to address this? Wojtek, maybe you can switch into the Showroom tab, which is also in Alessandro. I'm pretty sure you didn't see it before. But what they are currently go up a little bit, go up. Okay. Showroom.
Okay.
This one, yeah. This is kind of interesting because one of our colleagues, Piotr, Marek Gruszecki, two guys I know from Poland, they work on this project, which is about building a kind of demo environment, showing all the capabilities of the platform, right? Of the whole stack, because this is one of the problems today. There's nothing, you can demo today. There's nothing you can see in practice. Of course, you can consume, SAP Cloud as a customer, as a client, but you won't see any kind of, backend machinery, right? This project is supposed to provide a kind of demo environment for everyone, allowing us to see, how it all behaves in practice. According to what I know, it should be ready in the summer this year. And this is one of the most important deliveries for this year to me. Wojtek, can you go down a little bit? There's showroom status documentation. Some areas may be missing bug or but yeah, of course, it's more like a beta. But there's a team of 5, 6, 7, 8 people working on this very heavily today. So it's supposed to be like a demo cloud environment with the default reference tag. So it will be Gardener in this particular case, right? But if you don't like Gardener, you can replace it with Cluster API if you want, right? So that's something that should answer a lot of questions. What is also important as under here is the topic which is maybe not so much important today, as we are having bigger geopolitical problems today, but it's also about green energy. And according to what I know, in Apeiro they want to implement a demo showing us that if you have a very strong sun in Spain or Italy, the data, the workloads are automatically moved from Denmark, from Norway, from Sweden to the countries with a lot of green energy in there, right? Like EV solar power and so on. So in case of the summertime, when you have a lot of energy in Spain, Italy, this kind of regions in Europe, you can automatically move with this kind of Kubernetes-centric declarative infrastructure to this part of Europe. But from the other hand, if there is a very strong wind in Norway or Sweden or Denmark, producing tons of gigawatts of energy in there, the Apeiro cloud may automatically move the workloads from the South Europe countries to the colder ones, right? So it's supposed to be dynamic by design, right? So it's not like in Terraform you design, okay, it goes to this data center or to this region. This is where it is supposed to work. It's more like intent-driven infrastructure. This is one of the features which I'm also very excited about. In Apeiro, by design, you can build intent-driven infrastructures. By design, of course. The demo is supposed to prove it to work, and the green energy scenario. I think it's very interesting, but it will also allow us to better understand how flexible, how dynamic this infrastructure can be under the hood, right? So it's not static anymore.
That's a good thing. So you basically declare the target consumption of target CO2, and then yes, the platform will accommodate. Okay.
Yeah,
that's a paradigm shift.
I saw a similar Apeiro demo about 2-3 months ago, and the intent was changed from the cheapest data center to green data center. So and the workloads were moved from Hetzner to Scaleway in a fully automated way. It took about 5-7 minutes for the entire migration to happen. I think it was some sort of WordPress application or some sort of CMS. And from the user perspective, it was fully transparent. There was no downtime. All the operators did the job, in the background, right? You just what they expect from you is just to define the intent, what you want from the infrastructure, right? The cheapest, the green, I know, in US, in China, whatever, right? So you can choose what you want. And the whole backend machinery is supposed to do all the work for you. It could be also used for the dynamic pricing, especially in the AI era. There is lots of differences in pricing. I don't know, in Gemini, Anthropic, Claude, and ChatGPT, and so on. The pricing changes, very aggressively from day to day. So we can also imagine this infrastructure to be dynamic depending on the price tag of particular resources of particular vendors. Okay. The last one. And I'm also very interested in European guys. Micro frontends architecture. The last, Wojtek, maybe you can switch to the tab. The last one on the list on the left block. Yeah. This is micro frontends. No. Sorry, it was on the Apeiro site. Yeah. Micro frontend. Yeah, this one. So this is actually also by design, or maybe by intention, it's supposed to handle or to address the problem Alessandro mentioned with the Backstage, right? So Backstage is more like a static portal presenting you all the backend APIs. In case of micro frontend approach, we're looking into more dynamic way of building frontends. The infrastructure is changing like crazy today. Being up to date with what Azure is changing, day by day, is a mission impossible today, right? There is like too many APIs, too many services. Everything is changing all the time, and the UIs like Backstage are getting deprecated or outdated very, very quickly today, right? So the solution to this is the micro frontend approach with some sort of dynamic generation of the web UIs. So I discussed this topic with a couple of people before, and we believe that the future frontends, the future portals, will have some sort of dynamic engines in them. So the UI layer is going to be generated on the fly, and there's already a couple of vendors actually trying this kind of ideas. Or experimenting with this approach. Of course, GraphQL, MCP, REST, irregular REST APIs. This is all what needs to be considered for the proper integration, but it is possible. I'm not sure, Pavel, Wojtek, if you have any thoughts on that part. This is more like an R&D approach, but static portals, I think, won't be very useful in so dynamic world that we have today.
I think I agree. I think that's a big problem. Backstage is a great example of a tool that you have to rebuild, you have to maintain whenever you make any change, and most UIs have this problem. Some tools like Grafana allow you to have a plugin system in place. Azure Portal has a whole operating system style approach where each service in Azure can have its own ecosystem, but it's still mostly internal. So I think this kind of approach where you could have a micro frontend that could be part of a larger holistic UI, I think that has to be there for things that are basically composable. Like if you have Lego bricks, then you have to be able to compose them at the UI level as well without building a UI that's the lowest common denominator, because usually the lowest common denominators are not really useful, right? And no one's going to agree on, say, React as the only framework that everyone uses. Even between React versions, they are so incompatible. It's a bit difficult to embed one in another.
So we need to remove the problem of front and back end silos and all the communication which is needed today to deliver a new feature to the outside. Right? I'm not sure how it is implemented on the hyperscaler side, but in the past at least, it was like the backend team job was to expose proper APIs, and then those APIs were consumed by the portal, right? But the future, in the future, I think the backend side is going to be far too dynamic and providing far too many changes to continue the same way of working, and we need to generate the front end portals in a fully automated way based on whatever source of information, but it has to be automatically generated to to some degree. Okay. And other thoughts? We're running out of time, but yeah, we have only 2 minutes left. So let's summarize for today. So it was just a kind of kickoff initial meeting, a bit of theoretical at this stage. For the next couple of weeks, we are going to dive a little bit deeper into the technology. We'll be discussing different frameworks, different components of the Apeiro architecture. But not only Kanu Kaipa, which is a sub-project behind Kanu, focused on agentic platforms. That's going to be also a big part of it. Next week we are going to have a deeper discussion around MCP servers, led by Paweł Mincer. So yeah, Alessandro, big thanks for joining. We didn't expect anyone to join actually today, but
I was waiting for this for some time, and I look forward to support you if I can promote it. Let me know. So
we didn't promote this event actually, in a hope just the very motivated guys join only, right? But for the next one, I hope the audience will be slightly bigger, and then we'll jump into more technical topics.
I think Luma is good. Luma. You can discover events in Luma. I think that's how I discovered this.
Yeah. Luma is great actually. User experience is amazing. Okay, so thank you guys.
Thank you.
And see you in the next meetups. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.